Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with atbbq.com, and today we're making chorizo stuffed pork chops with a smoked salsa verde. Now we've got a lot of stuff to get into today, from the salsa verde to the chorizo stuffing to the marinade, a pork loin, but the very first thing that we need to focus on is the marinade for our pork. We're gonna start this marinade off with some fruit juices. This is a cup and a half of pineapple juice, got a cup and a half of mango juice. We're gonna need a half cup of lime juice. We're gonna squeeze that fresh. That right up to a half cup. All right, so now we've got some sweet and some sour going on. Why not add a little bit of tequila? This will make a pretty good cocktail already. Half cup of tequila. Grab a straw. Next, we're gonna do 3 tablespoons of wildflower honey. I want a couple tablespoons of our Mook's meat seasoning. So this gives us some salt and some pepper, some garlic and onion. And then just to warm things up, I'm gonna do about a tablespoon of Filet Volcano. This is a red chili hot sauce. And now for our aromatics, we have 4 cloves of garlic, and we're gonna get about a cup of minced cilantro. The garlic, I'm just gonna crush it down, nice and fine, pick the skin off. Not super important, but we're not gonna be consuming most of this, so. We don't need to mince that up, we're just gonna crush it down. We are gonna reserve some of this marinade for our salsa verde, which is why I don't want the skins in there, because we don't want to be chewing on that later. All right, so we've broken these open so that they can release their oils and their aroma into the marinade. And then when you think about it with the cilantro, we're almost doing the same thing. We're opening up the leaves and the pores so that they can, those cell walls, that is, so that they can release their oils. And this is also the reason why you probably won't ever see me chopping cilantro like this. We try and glide through the herb to try and preserve that oil as best as possible so it stays intact in the leaves. All right, so this is rough, about a cup once that's chopped down. And then we're just gonna give it a whisk. Gotta distribute that seasoning, we gotta distribute that honey because this is not hot right now. The honey wants to go straight to the bottom, but it will disperse if we break it up and move it around. That's delicious. Ooh, I love the heat on the back end from that hot sauce. All right, now it's time to get into that pork loin. We're gonna cut our own pork chops. We want them nice and thick because we're gonna stuff them full of that chorizo later. So first we gotta trim up the pork loin, then we'll slice our chops. All right, so we're gonna start by taking off this excess fat and silver skin from the surface. This isn't gonna do anything later on to add any moisture. In fact, all we're gonna do is just end up chewing on that silver skin underneath the fat, which isn't a very pleasant experience. And that stuff right there is what I'm talking about. That's the chewy stuff. Now, inevitably with pork loin, you get this spot where this slightly lighter pink muscle and this slightly darker colored muscle cross paths, and you've got that silver skin that runs in between. You can't do anything about that without getting rid of this muscle, so I just do my best to clean up around it. Now, like I said, we want to cut these pretty thick, probably about 1.5 inches or so. And this last bit I'm going to save to roast on its own. So this is where we get to that other darker muscle. We're gonna stop cutting our chops there because we're actually gonna stuff into the center of this lighter muscle. So we'll leave that tail in for another day. So what I like to do is find a spot where we can cut our opening for the stuffing. And I like to do it in the same spot on every chop so that they're uniform. But I'm gonna come in here right in the center of the meat. I'm gonna try and cut all the way to the edge without going through. I'm kind of feeling where my blade is from the top. Doing the same thing coming around to the side. And then if we get in there, you can actually see where my finger's moving around That's the entire pocket that we have opened up to stuff with, so that's perfect. And then we've got just this tiny opening in which we'll do our stuffing. Today's stuffing is not gonna come oozing out, so we're in luck there. We won't have to toothpick these. All right, now you could throw these into a zip top bag if you want, but this bowl is gonna be just as convenient for what we're doing today. Just make sure they're fully submerged. If you need to, you can set a plate on there to keep them under the surface of the marinade. I wanna give these chops at least an hour to soak up this marinade. If it's a little bit longer, that's okay too. We'll kind of peek at them. You can see on the surface when they begin to change, the acid and those juices starts to change them. But for now, we're just gonna set them aside in the fridge and we're gonna work on our salsa verde. For this salsa verde, we're gonna be smoking our tomatillos and our onion. We'll be fire roasting the poblano and the jalapeno, and it'll all come together with some cilantro, some garlic, and a bit of that reserved marinade in the end. So let's get to prepping up the tomatillos. All right, so what you wanna do with these is peel off this skin on the outside. We can discard that. So as we take this paper off, you'll notice we've still got some stuff on the surface. That's why we're putting them in this bowl, so we can take them inside, rinse them off before we get them on the smoker. So next I'm gonna slice all of these in half. This is really gonna allow the smoke flavor to penetrate in through the cut side. And then for the onion, we're working with half of a large onion. If you got a smaller onion, you might quarter it. I'm gonna quarter this down. Just so it softens up a little bit easier, a little bit quicker. But we're leaving that root end intact so that it doesn't fall apart on us on the grill. Today we're cooking on the Kamado Joe Classic II. So we're running a lump charcoal base, and then we're gonna add some cherry wood chunks on top for that smoke flavor. So we're gonna have this thing set up indirect, wanna run it about 250 degrees. So we got a couple of chunks of apple wood here today. We'll go ahead and let those ignite before we cover this up with the other plate. We're running a small hot coal bed on the back side of this grill, so we've got good airflow coming through there. It's gonna take a minute for the chunks to warm up, but when they do, they'll ignite and they'll burn clean. All right, there's no other treatment for the tomatillas and for the onion right now. Just want to spread these out so they have room to get some smoke on them. Now at 225 with that nice smoke being produced, I only want to give it about 15 minutes. We don't want the smoke flavor to be too heavy in our salsa. So at 15 minutes, what I'm going to do is open this thing wide up, and that'll bring the temperature up, it'll clean the smoke up, and it'll also allow the tomatillos and the onions to soften. We want to get those just a little bit soft before we take them off. So you can see that we've got some smoke on there. It's visible on the outside, and if we squeeze on our tomatillos, they've softened up a bit. These are ready to come off. That only took another, 15 minutes after opening this thing up. So the other great thing about opening the airflow all the way up is it begins to bring that temperature up, which is what we need in order to grill off our peppers and eventually our pork chops. But before we can get any further, I'm gonna go ahead and take those plates out of there so we can get some direct heat. Now the grill's come up to temp. Our coals are really hot right now, which is great because we've got to get some char on our peppers. And we'll nestle these jalapenos in wherever we can. So we're gonna have to move stuff around a little bit to make sure everything gets blackened. But that's all right. Let's close the lid to help roast these a little quicker. Nice char. Flip these over. Poblanos, some of these are gonna need a couple flips to get everything. So what we're doing right now is we're charring that skin. We're creating a little bit of air in between the skin and the flesh. which is going to allow us to steam it completely away so we can peel the skin off after this is fully charred. All right, these skins are all blistered up on all sides. So now we're gonna move these over to our zip top bag. Once we get these in here, we'll seal it up. This will help to steam those skins off. And it's probably only gonna take about 10 minutes to do that. Now with the peppers roasted off, the tomatillos and the onions smoked, we're pretty much ready to throw everything in the food processor and make our salsa verde. The tomatillos, I'm gonna knock them down just a little bit. I want them a little bit smaller so that we don't end up with uneven sized chunks in the end. So we'll just cut these in half and get them into the food processor. Now with the onions, you might get rid of this crusty outside layer here, and we don't want the stem in there, but we do want to do a rough chop on the rest of it, so that can be discarded, and the rough chop goes in with the tomatillos. Now we're going to process these peppers. I'm going to open them up, get rid of those seeds, flip them over, get rid of that skin. And we're doing the exact same thing with the poblano peppers. Again, we're gonna do a rough chop on the flesh of the peppers here and then send those right to the food processor. Damn it. Next, we've got about 3 cloves of garlic that we've chopped up. And roughly 1 cup of chopped cilantro. And last, a 1/4 cup of that marinade that we reserved earlier before we got the pork in there. So some pineapple, mango, lime, all that good stuff. All right, I'm gonna start just pulsing this down. I'm gonna go for a little bit chunkier salsa today, but if you wanted to, you could take this all the way to a puree. It's totally up to you. No right or wrong way. All right, so scrape down the sides and keep going. We're getting close to where we want it. Take a look at that. Still pretty chunky, but again, do it however you like it. All right, I guarantee you this is gonna need some salt, but I'm gonna get a taste for a reference point. Could definitely use some salt. The smoke's really nice in there. It's tangy, just a little bit of burn from the jalapenos. We're right on track though. All right, this is ready to go. The pork chops are ready to come out of the marinade. They're getting just a little bit of that I've been marinating long enough look on the outside. So we're gonna quickly stuff them with our chorizo, our cotija cheese, and get them on the grill. All right, got this pound of chorizo cooked down. I'm gonna add 4 ounces of crumbled cotija cheese. If you can't find cotija, you can use queso fresco. Doesn't have quite the same zing, but it'll work in a pinch. And this is all that it takes to make our stuffing. Really simple. But this flavor working from the inside of the pork chop out, it's gonna be magic. Get these chops out of the marinade. Had a couple hours to soak up all that flavor. And we're just gonna go right in there with our chorizo and cheese. So lots of salt and lots of flavor working from the inside of the pork chop out. So you can begin to see this thing fill up. It's kind of ballooning up in the middle. And as I mentioned earlier, the great thing about doing just chorizo and cheese on the inside, especially a dry, crumbly cheese like this, is not much is gonna leak out. I mean, it's not gonna go far, so you can really stuff this thing pretty well. See, that one's definitely filled up nicely. All right, just real quick, a little drizzle of our marinade. This is going to allow this rub to really adhere to the meat. We're We're seasoning this with the Cattleman's Grill Carne Asada, the 8-second ride. Nice big chili flavors in here. So let's just give that a minute to set up and get the other side done. Same thing, hit it with a little bit of that 8-second ride. Again, just a minute or two to let that set up, and we'll take these over to the grill. We are still set up for direct grilling so we can get some great color on these pork chops. We're gonna start off down low on the lower grate, and then on the indirect side of the grill, we'll install this up high so we can finish here without getting too much more color. All right, we're gonna go 2 to a shelf and just rotate these around. Now I'm rotating these guys through to get some good color on them. Let's check back here. That's nice, some good char. That's exactly what we're looking for. And again, as we get some char on the opposite side of these two, we'll move them up to the top shelf to finish cooking indirect. Now we're creeping right up past 135. I want to pull these before they get to 140. This is just about perfect. That temperature, your pork's safe to eat and it stays super juicy. Although you can tell just by looking at that filling, it's going to be plenty juicy. So we're just going to slice right in here so you can get a nice profile view of what's going on inside. Look at that, beautiful. Plenty of juice still coming out of that pork down there. Just smells amazing. It's sliced nice and thin like this. Beautiful presentation. See how I would slide that right onto a plate. Top it with our smoked salsa verde. And then for presentation, just a little bit more of that cotija. And a pinch of microgreens on top, the radish, cilantro. Big flavor, and it looks beautiful. And we can talk about how it looks all day long because it's a beautiful plate for sure, but what's really important is how it tastes. So I'm gonna get a slice here, a little bit of that salsa verde. Dang. That's fantastic. I mean, it's salty. I love the filling. Really complements the pork nice. Pork on pork action, always good stuff. But it's super bright with that salsa. I mean, it's just like, you've got all these earthy flavors from the chorizo and the pork and everything, and then it's brightened right up with that smoky salsa. Pretty winning combination, I'd say. All right, you guys have been with me for this whole process. I know this has been a pretty involved recipe today. There's a lot of moving parts going on, right? And it takes some time. I think it's totally worth it, but if you don't have the time, there are some things you can do in place of what we've done today. And we got a couple of great products straight off the shelf that will work for this recipe. For the marinade, that Sweetwater Spice Lime Jalapeno Fajita Bath, it's fantastic. #1 ingredient, pineapple juice. So it would fit exactly with what we're doing. Now for the Verde, Salsa Verde, we have a product from Holmes Made called Marty's Chili Verde. It's a really great green chili salsa. It's one of my favorite products off of our shelf out of everything in our store. So you guys can check those out if you want to save yourself a little bit of time. Thanks so much for watching. Appreciate it if you head over to atbbq.com to check out all the products featured in today's video. And if you enjoyed the video, please hit the subscribe button. If you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to thesauce.atbbq.com. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.